Hello there. This is Critical Thinking Part 2. So, the last time I think we had a little very nice debate about Batman versus Iron Man. Who's the better designer? I think I'm a DC College. Sorry, DC College. I'm sorry. DC Comics fan, and I like everything DC. So, I tend to be pretty biased. Excuse me, pretty biased to Bruce Wayne, but I say that I think Tony Stark is a lot more innovative. I may not like it, but if I were to ask the right questions, and I think Tony Stark is definitely more innovative in this case, he's probably a better designer. Bruce Wayne doesn't really do much of it, but though I like Bruce Wayne better though, in a way, but I still can't help it. I think Tony Stark wins in a way. Well, so what is critical thinking? And a quick recap. Ask questions. Basically, why ask questions? Asking question is to investigate the right problem which leads to the right solution. So again, we have spoken in detail about some of the aspects of critical thinking. We got intellectual reasoning, so quality of intellectual reasoning, and then the intellectual virtues and traits. So you have these three areas. You always have the reasoning, the quality of our reasoning, and then you have the virtues and traits. You have these three things to guide your critical thinking pattern in your critical thinking approach. So usually a good analogy to asking questions is really about looking at the problem at the core. But before you reach the core, you got to consider peeling off each layers. It's like an onion. So that's a cascading effect that as problem consequences from the source of the problem. So the more you ask questions, the more you peel off those layers. It's like there's a little popular game to ask questions 5 times. Apparently, if you ask questions 5 times, you get to the root cause of the problems so much easier. Now, search investigations, research is all about peeling away the layers of cascading problem consequences. If this can take time, if questions are vague. Now, if you ask the right questions, sometimes you reach to the root cause of the problems way faster, probably peel more layers if you ask the right question. But if you don't know how to ask the right questions, or if you ask the most vague questions, or you have no idea what you're asking, you may not even get to the right, you may not even get anywhere. You probably won't even peel the first layer. So this is what you see if you look at detective stories, or if you look at the most mysterious issues or problems. Imagine the struggle of trying to figure out, getting the information. So the right question is being able to slice that onion into half, and including, and the problem becomes a lot more visible. So there is definitely an approach here. Asking the right questions definitely is beneficial. The right question means being able to identify what needs fixing or solving. We are constantly fixing things, and sometimes there's just so many areas to look at. But if you ask the right question, it's like almost having a radar pointing towards the right direction. Yeah. Now, discovering problems sometimes is if you discover it accurately, you can find it in the most unexpected places. You will never, you never could have guessed, okay, where these problems would be, or where the source of the problem would be. Sometimes, you come to a situation where all this while it was right in front of you. You never could have guessed, right? But that is only if you started asking right questions, or if you started looking at the right direction. Now, back to dreams. When you apply your imagination in order to when you get triggered, you have imagination and you want to translate it into creativity. Always, you will start to realize that you're going to have to start to reflect every process. Like again, in every workflow, there's a reflexive and reflexive process that takes place where you constantly look back and critically question each stage of your development. Yeah. So, Richard Branson is one of those people that's very brilliant guy, and he has all these very successful brands. He's got a huge empire, and he came up with this space plane. But the space plane had a lot of problems, and this is meant to go up into the stratosphere, really, really at the edge of space, and then come back down to Earth. It's not going outside of the stratosphere into orbit or anything, because obviously it doesn't have a heat shield. But this is going to the edge of space and then coming back down. And he wanted to do this for space tourism, but obviously there's a lot of problems here. So someone like him, when you design a plane like that, you obviously need to go. There'll be a lot of different issues that you need to address. It's the cost of designing a plane like this, and the kind of accidents that happen. I mean, accidents have happened. So what has caused it, and things like that. So there's a lot. Now, he was very innovative, and he had to take a lot of risk. But one of the important things that he does, that in order to constantly make sure that he addresses the mistakes and the issues, is writing it down and always recording his ideas. So he's one of those people that advocates for that. Elon Musk, he's actually quite innovative, and he has made a lot of mistakes himself. All these people did not become billionaires and successful because they did not make mistakes. They made tons of mistakes, tons of it. And he says failure is an option here. And you don't have to be as rich as Elon Musk, or you don't have to achieve something to be a billionaire like Elon Musk. You can be doing something very much more simpler where you are at. And where you're at, if you think that you can't even accept a small mistake, then I don't think you would be able to move forward, because mistakes are the basis of improvement. And if you would need to know how to improve by asking the right questions about those mistakes. So you have to innovate. Innovation is one of those results of trying to understand it. So one of the good examples of his success is SpaceX. When the main problem was launching rockets into space was very, very expensive. So basically, that's what it is. That was the main problem. If you can cut down the cost of doing that, because every time they launch a rocket in space, traditionally, the whole booster will fall into the ocean, and they have to spend more to build new boosters, because they're going to waste those boosters away. But in this case, what if he creates reusable boosters? Make those boosters land and then reuse them. So, and he's made tons, he's wasted so much, but they planned it. They know that they're going to make there's going to be a lot of accidents. Boosters, they keep testing and testing. They have done countless tests. So many countless tests, and lots of multiple explosions, until they got it right. And now the boosters, they fail. They land without fail. Now they have new ships like the Starship, and they have a huge, super heavy and things like that, and they're still testing it. Okay, now, so these are some of the examples of people seeing that asking the right questions may be able to look at the source of the problem. Because you see, when things don't work, when designs don't work, when there's a struggle in trying to create the design, then you're going to have to look back and constructively ask those right questions. Now, sometimes we are creatures of we tend to look at things. We look at design with skepticism, with cynicism, but we also have to understand the difference between opinions and fact. And sometimes when we can be a bit opinionated about something that don't work or work. But what's the difference between facts and opinions, assumptions and belief? Let's come to the second part. The other part of creative thinking is trying to understand what's the difference. We tend to give feedback. Feedback is very important in design. And when lecturers give feedback, students give feedback, on what basis? How are they supporting that feedback? Where is this information coming from? And so, how do we know you're right? Okay, and have you asked the right question? So some of these things are checklists for you, and I think you're probably going to use it on me. So, what are facts, opinions? What are claims? Claims are assumptions. So claims are statements that may be true, may not be true, but it can be baseless without any information to support it or any kind of evidence to support it. Claims are assumptions. There's no evidence. There may or may not be any evidence, but let's just put this to the test. The instructor for this class is a male. Is that true? What do you think? How do you know the instructor? So basically, you have to throw back the question, how do you know the instructor for this class is a male? And then another person who continue with the question, who is the instructor of this class? It's Dr. Charles. Is Dr. Charles a male? Yes, he is. So based on the answers to those questions, then we can confirm that this claim is true. Now, when you make a claim, you got to confirm that claim. Now, claims are assumptions. We're assuming. Assumptions are like that. Okay? Your teacher is short. Somebody made a claim and said that. I made an assumption that the teacher is short. But basically, which class is it? And if short, who are you comparing him or her to? Okay. Cats hate humans. Is that true? Is that a claim? Or is that opinion? Is that assumption? What is it? Is there any evidence to support this? Do you have additional questions to peel off those layers? Money can solve all problems. Is that true? How do you know that? Yeah? Opinion? Assumption? How can anyone be so dumb as to think computers can think? Is computers thinking right now? In this age of AI, can they think? How many questions can you generate about this? Todo cachorro pode latir. What is it? Ooh, what is it? What does it say? Can you Google it? Google it and tell me what it is. I don't know. I have no idea what that is. I'm a lecturer, so I lecture all the time. Is that true? Really? Now, so when you make assumptions, making a claim, an opinion is like that person at the slope and obviously would fall. But if you obviously ask more right questions to support the claim, if you do have evidence to support it, then therefore you can see a support system, then obviously everything will be supported and therefore the claim is true. But what if there's no evidence? Then there's no reason for each one of these person to support each other because there's no evidence to do so. Therefore, it won't amount to anything. So what is the difference between fact and opinion? The fact and opinion, let's say there are, say, I guess as an assumption, um, or opinions, for example, racism only occurs between white people and colored people. Is that's just an opinion. Some people consider that as a fact, but what is the data? What supports it? What are the evidence? The hardest hit are colored people. Is that true? Dark skinned people are discriminated the most. Is that true? So are these facts or opinions? But basically racism takes many shapes. So what does that mean? So you got to, were they facts or opinions? Fortunately, they're just opinions, because you need to keep asking the right questions to find out. Then you realize, oh my gosh, the term racism or bigotry can be seen in different perspectives. That's why the ad says racism takes many shapes. So what are facts? Now, facts are objective statements that can be verified. So you don't have to verify statements. You got to verify claims, and you got to verify them, because there are definitely information that supports these claims and opinions. So, well, what are opinions? Opinions are subjective statements based on personal beliefs. Opinions are basically personal belief. You know, facts are supported with they're verified information. Opinions are subjective. They have no verified information. They can be is reactionary. It's very reacting. You know, you gasp. Remember that ad that says life is short, have an affair. Like, oh my gosh, that's such a horrible thing. Probably, you have lots of opinions about it, but you think, oh, that's rubbish. It's not real. It can't be real. But that's just an opinion. But then if you really study it, then you verified it, it becomes a fact. So opinions are, there's only thing, there are dragons in this world. That's an opinion. Because dragons don't exist. So they're subjective statements, unless the dragon is an analogy or a metaphor, and so on and so forth. So personal beliefs are always there. But it's okay to question facts, but how do you evaluate the facts? Who wrote the content or designed that plan? For example, if that's a fact, who wrote that content? Is the information biased? One of the things about facts versus opinions is that sometimes we can be biased ourselves. So these are some of the ways to evaluate the facts. What is the accuracy and so on? Investigate its validity. Is it really valid? And talking about facts and opinions, what about what about mythology, myth? Now, mythicization and demythicization. I don't know, mythicization could be a new term that's being created right here, but can you mythify something? I mean, so like Lord of the Rings, was J.R.R. Tolkien's tales, okay? Was it based on real events? No, he wrote Lord of the Rings, but how did he come up with those ideas in the first place? Why did he need to use an analogy to represent the orcs? I mean, use orcs as an analogy to represent something. Are all those an analogical representation, or the entire thing is a metaphor for something? So when they say the orcs burn the trees in the fires of industry, what does that mean? The word industry is mentioned in the book. So what does that mean? You're destroying forest. So who do you think, based on the elements that's happening in the story, destruction of the environment, destruction of the trees, the word industry the industrialization of the land causing pollution and so on. What do you think? I'll leave that to your thoughts. What was the story behind Hansel and Gretel? Like, if you look at mythology those days and all the different stories, there must be some truth in it, perhaps. There's got to be something there. Yeah. So there's mythicization, basically to do with assumptions, claims, opinions, personal belief. That means you can create fictional accounts or fantasy stories which, that's mythicized, probably based on a real event. I don't know. It could be hypothetical. Yeah. But there's also, you demythicize it. Now, if you find proof that they were based on something, then maybe they were based on facts. Maybe they were based on science. So, again, every form of mythology reserves investigation. Every form of fictional account or any kind of opinion, assumptions, biased views requires investigations. This is the conclusion of the critical thinking. You need to somehow find concrete evidence and proof that something needs improvement, something needs amendment, a design needs amendment, that something needs to change, something needs to be created, and so on and so forth. Investigate its validity and find ways to make it work. Whenever you watch movies or anything like that, superhero stories, again, engage in critical discussion. Any design, whether it's a comic book design, engage in critical thinking. So demythifying a popular myth can reveal facts basically you never thought existed. And the mythbusters. So if you demythicize or demythify it, you can, that's why they call these guys the mythbusters. They look at some of those myths and then it's a very popular show, and they try to prove it. And one of the logical methods is also using deductive reasoning. I put Spock there because Spock is a logical guy. Spock is one of those characters in Star Trek that is always focused on logic. Logic dictates this, logic that, logic. And deductive reasoning is basically is based on two facts or premise. If the premises are true, then it should follow that conclusion of the argument. That our conclusion argument should be true. Yeah. So basically, it's based on three parts. One is a major premise, basically a general truth like a principle categorized. Then a minor premise deals with a specific matter concerning the major premise, and then there's a conclusion. The truth is guaranteed. So, deductive reasoning. Now, for instance, we know A, that dogs have 4 legs. Okay. You know that B, that Scooby is a dog. Dogs have 4 legs, right? So Scooby, remember the thing about the lecturer? The lecturer of this class is a male. So when you have to do a deductive reasoning, deductive logic to know whether that's true or not. So dogs have 4 legs. Scooby is a dog. Therefore, if A and B is true, then we can conclude for certainty that Scooby has 4 legs. That Scooby is a dog. Is that actually that simple, or is it? For this example, you can see a deductive argument is sound when the major premise is true. The major premises are that dogs have 4 legs and Scooby is a dog. Yeah. Now, the major premise for deductive argument, there are 2 important factors for the major premise. It relates 2 terms, okay, and it states as a generalization, rule, or principle. No one knows if an asteroid will collide with the Earth? There are no asteroids. Those who believe asteroids will hit, they have overactive imagination. So now you see the so now you see that the major premise, okay, for the deductive argument, let's say if no one knows, number one, no one knows if an asteroid is going to hit the Earth, okay, that collide with the Earth. And so far there are no asteroids outside the Earth. Okay, so the two major premise, they are interconnected and they're relating. Now there is also an assumption that will be supported by a statement. So those who believe asteroids will hit the Earth, now based on the two major premises, we can conclude that those who believe asteroids will hit the Earth have overactive imagination. But that is fully supported by the scientist argument that says scientists have proven asteroids will not hit the Earth. So therefore, again, that reinforces the conclusion. So because of the major premise. Now, minor premise. Now, a minor premise affirms the major premise or denies it. There you go. Gays like top 40 music. Bobby's gay. All right. Gays like top 40 music. Bobby isn't gay. Either one is either one. Okay. So, yeah. There are other things in logical reasoning, and there's also logical fallacies. So you can think about this. A slippery slope, basically a statement based on two facts. We have to stop the cutbacks on our fees. Today is 5,000. Tomorrow they'll be sending us to the streets. So you get logical fallacies like a slippery, but a slippery slope statement is based on two facts, but taking the conclusion. Sorry, there's a typo here. There's one L to conclusion. Sorry about that. To an extreme. So it's like, again, kind of like borderline assumption, right? It's like an opinion. It's a fallacy. A fallacy is like a logical fallacy. There may not be logic as well, but it's like usually said when you're angry or more reacting. False dilemmas are arguments which present a limited number of options. Leave it, love it or leave it. You know, either you're with us or you're against us. So you have all these kind of statements. Get better grades or you'll never go to college. You see this all the time. You see false dilemmas and so on and so forth. So usually there are more options to this. So avoid false dilemmas, avoid slippery slopes. But for argument's sake, sometimes you just want to argue without even being logical. There you go. Circular reasoning, the fallacy of circular reasoning is often called begging the question. You assume as truth the premise you're supposed to be proving. I told you to clean your room. Why? Because I said so. Circular reasoning. Okay, why do you think the art is superior race? Because I'm Aryan. These are some of the, when it comes to intellectual traits and virtues, judge for yourself. What do you think they are? So, arguments, you're arguing peacefully while dreaming about the future. Suddenly you have to brake to avoid a pothole. All goes well, and all of a sudden someone bumped you in the back. Later you said to this policeman, "Isn't my fault. How could it be? She hit me from the rear. Anytime you get rear-ended, it's not your fault." Okay. So what do you think? What do you think this is? Is this circular reasoning? Is this a false dilemma? Is this what, a slippery slope? What do you think this is? Anyway, I'll leave this argument with you. And this concludes the second part of critical thinking. I hope this makes sense to you. I know there's a lot to unpack here. But thank you for paying attention to the whole video. You take care, and I'll see you in class.